Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. As always, my name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Simon Dudley, the head of Analyst Relations at Logitech. And they just put out a report about how remote workers and hybrid workers are using tools, technology tools, and some of the challenges that they're experiencing. So what would you say would be the changes in how workers got equipped from the beginning of the pandemic to right now, based on what Logitech has been discovering in the report and your own personal experience?
Sure. Well, good afternoon or good morning or good day, whichever it is to our audience first. So yeah, it's been interesting. When the pandemic kicked off, 2.5 years or so ago now, basically most of our clients tell us that they said to their users, grab whatever you can from the office, take it home, use it, and or a bit like Robinson Crusoe, really, or there was this sense of just go and buy whatever you can get your hands on from Amazon or anywhere online and use that. And it worked okay, but I think IT departments were rather overwhelmed by the number of different things all their users went and bought, and they were also overwhelmed by trying to support one of the Okie Kokie Mark 7 GTIs or whatever it is that all these users bought. So it became a real mess. One of the things that's happened, and certainly our report talks about, is this idea that IT departments sit there and basically wait for the phone to ring for someone to complain, at which point they go and try and fix that problem. They don't have the time to be reactive to their users and explain to users what they should get. And our report seems to indicate that most users don't even know what they could do to make their life better, but they do know what they've got today isn't great. So we're in this kind of weird situation, which I guess we're going to talk about in more detail, but it's a fascinating space to be in.
It is. Let me share with you a story. So I helped 21 organizations transition to hybrid and remote work. I want to share with you a story about one organization, and you let me know what they did right and what they did wrong, but would you recommend that they do better, and how it compares to what other organizations did. So what we did there is we surveyed users on their needs. So they figured out kind of the future of work and what they wanted for their home office, for their technology, and users wanted a lot of different things. And what we figured is that the IT department at the Information Sciences Institute, it's about a 300-ish people research AI and cyber security research institute in the University of Southern California. So they did not have a huge, well-funded IT department. They had reasonably funded, and they could not really support all the different things that people wanted. So they looked at, and also they found that a number of people didn't really know what they wanted. They just wanted a nice webcam or something like that. They didn't know what was the webcam that they wanted. So what we did was we researched kind of some of the best webcams and created a standardized set of couple of webcams, one or two, kind of couple of audio devices, a lot of everything that various monitor arms, furniture that's going to be nice and ergonomic, headphones, everything that you might want for your home office, kind of a standardized set. And we told them, order either this monitor or this monitor, order this, headphones, so on. And so we created a website where they can order this, and then we shipped it to them, to their home office, and then we had somebody come over if they needed to help set up the furniture or if they needed to arrange something, connect things. So they got all this kind of basic equipment and supplies that they needed to actually manage their home office. And then because IT knew about the devices, they reviewed them, they got thorough knowledge of them, they knew they were all compatible and that they could also support all of these devices and they can fix them and replace them easily if things went awry. What do you think of that approach?
When you said, it's funny, you just described it and you said, what did we get wrong? I would argue not very much, actually. And you were way ahead of most organizations. Most organizations we spoke to were scrambling, right? Their own IT departments weren't in the office either. Most of these folks didn't have a lot of experience with this technology. And so I think what you did was excellent. A couple of sort of pointers, though. The first one would be that not all the requirements of all the users are either the same nor obvious.
Sure.
It's very interesting. Our own report points out that many people find that, for example, the webcam in their laptop, as a good example, they may think it's perfectly acceptable. And remember, they don't get to see themselves very much.
I know.
It's the far end that gets to benefit from your investment. But then they find out that it's not even about the camera necessarily, but it's also about the camera angle, right? If I'm staring down, I'm at that age where having the camera beneath my chin, for example, is rarely flattering. It's rarely flattering for most of us, but it's really very not flattering when you're kind of, mid-50s and put on a few pounds. So I think that part of the problem with such an approach can be, and I'm certainly not suggesting that you did this, but that you ask your users what they want. Well, our own report suggests that lots of users have had no idea what they want. We talk, for example, I'll give you an example. We talk about headsets, right? And people think, oh, well, I'll use Apple AirPods, and because they're great, right? Apple product, make nice AirPods, and they're brilliant, by the way. They're really excellent products, and obviously they sell millions of them a year, but they're not business design products. So as an example, and my dog was perfect in his position a moment ago. My wife just came home. You probably heard him bark in the background. If I'd been wearing something like some of our headphones, it would have cancelled out the sound of my dog. You wouldn't have heard it. If you'd been wearing Apple earbuds, then you absolutely would have heard it, because the noise cancelling is one of those things that people go, oh yeah, I don't hear that white noise when I'm on the plane or the bus or whatever. Yeah, but there's two forms of noise cancelling. There's the cut out the sound that goes into your ears, but there's also cut out the sound that go from your microphones to the far end of the call. Let's be realistic. How many people even know that's a thing? So it's all very good for manufacturers like us to say, we have noise cancelling headphones. To go, oh, I could buy Bose headphones and do that. And by the way, their headphones are excellent at cutting out sound at this end, but they're terrible at cutting out sound at the far end, because that's not what they're designed to do. So, and then there's the other angle that I think a lot of people look at things like a laptop and go, oh, I get a lovely laptop. I've got a Apple, whatever it is, MacBook M1 Pro, beautiful device. But it's really, if you think about it, in many senses, it is a Swiss Army knife, right? It does everything reasonably well. But if you actually had the proper tool, you'd probably use the proper tool rather than the Swiss Army knife. The Swiss Army knife is almost your last resort.
Sure.
And the other thing that we've been thinking about, and it's a kind of an interesting angle, is that things like a laptop, which is what most of us have when we're working from home, is really designed as a compute device, where increasingly we're living in a world where actually your computer is less focused on being a compute device and more focused, particularly post-pandemic or during the pandemic, as a communications device.
That makes
sense.
They
weren't particularly designed for that. They're okay at it, but they don't produce the quality of experience of a high-end webcam or high-quality headphones. The speakers are designed to help you listen to music rather than to do a video call on, for example. So yeah, we've noticed lots of different changes. I do want to say, for the record, though, I think you did a great job and way better than most.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes, we encourage employees to make sure they do get the webcams and so on, because yeah, it's not intuitive to people that the ones who suffer from having poor webcams and microphones are the people at the other end. But I noticed from your report that something like just over a third of companies provided their employees with webcams and, well, and external speakers and external microphones. And that was kind of shocking to me, because if you think about collaboration, communication, what we're talking about here right now, the experience of communicating, collaborating through the inbuilt laptop, microphone, and webcam is just terrible from a number of things that you described, and just the lighting, people can't hear you. And again, you're not the one who suffers. The people who suffer are the ones at the other end. So you surveyed about 1,000 IT leaders,
Yeah.
and I was really confused why that was the collaboration aspect of it was not really addressed. When I think about, let's say, companies trying to get their employees back to the office, they say collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. That's what we want. But you're not providing them with like such simple basic things. I mean, it's going to cost them under, even the high end webcam would be, $200-$300. The microphone is going to be maybe $100, and that's going to solve a lot of your collaboration problems instead of trying to force your employees back into the office, or at least ameliorate them and kind of give you much better experience of collaborating remotely, which even if your employees are going to be coming to the office 2 or 3 days a week, they're still going to be working remotely and collaborating with others remotely 2 or 3 days a week. So what's the disconnect from your experience with IT leaders and providing these tools for effective collaboration?
I think that's a very interesting question. And we're frankly still grappling with what the ramifications of this are. But I think our initial thought is this. And by the way, for your viewers who are watching this, please do not take offense at what I'm about to say. But a lot of IT departments honestly go to work to do what they can to support pain problems, right? I've said it when doing keynotes before. There's this concept of the IT department goes to work to not get fired. That gets me in trouble sometimes, but the reality is it's true, because how many of us at the end of a day working think, crikey, my phone worked and my laptop worked and everything worked well. I better ring the IT department and thank them, right? No one does that.
No.
Even
Sure.
the CIO doesn't ring up his own team to thank them for their for making it all work. So the only time the phone rings is when there's a problem. So all these users are having this very suboptimal experience, with poor quality webcams, which are as cheap as possible in their laptops. And why are they that? Because the manufacturers of these webcams in laptops aren't thinking about a really good quality experience.
Sure.
They're thinking about, is it good enough?
Yep.
It's back to our Swiss Army knife experience. Right? You never use that device to get whatever small boys out of horses' hooves that you get in a Swiss Army knife. You always use the real tool if it's available. You only use the specialist on occasions. So where we got to is this position where IT departments are going, well, the phone isn't ringing, therefore I assume everything's fine. And the users are like, well, I assume this is the best that's available. I mean, they've given me a laptop. I've got all the things. How can I say to the IT department, I want better, when they don't even know better exists?
I see. Okay, so that's a really interesting incentive question, where the IT department doesn't have an incentive to kind of make trouble and say, well, there are these better options, and then people will start demanding it, and then they don't have the budget to do so. And their employees just don't know that there are better options. They're thinking, well, I got this, and this is what I'll use, instead of trying to figure out, is this really a good way of actually accomplishing the goals that I'm trying to do? And the ones who suffer, the end users who suffer, are the employees of the company and their customers and their prospects. Because if you're doing sales, remote sales, that is a pretty bad experience if the people at the other end can't really see very well or hear very well and are not sold very well. If the customers are not well supported, so external stakeholders are not well supported, again, due to poor communication, and internal stakeholders are not collaborating together effectively. And so the end result is that that's really bad for the leadership, but no one is really motivated to address this issue, is what you're saying. So that's what you're finding. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes. But I do want to defend IT just momentarily here. It's more that it's not so much that they are like, well, let's not poke that bear. That looks like a big problem if we go and ask people. They don't know to ask people. And I think one of the things there's a lot of talk, not part of this survey perhaps, but parts of other things we've seen, that folks who are working from home aren't perceived to be as, should we say, professional, right, as those who come into the office. But in the old days, when I used to go to an office, I would wear a suit. Now, why would I wear a suit? Well, I wore a suit because it conveyed something about me. And our environments convey something about ourselves in the modern environment. So if you're sat on a couch and the camera's looking up your nose and you can't hear very well when the dog barks or the FedEx guy turns up, whatever it is, that does not look good for you. And I, you know, have an environment like I have this. This is a real environment. Your office looks fantastic. And why do you do that? You do that because you want to look professional. You want to have be respected. It's the same reason you would wear a suit and tie. It isn't about comfort. It isn't about it's about conveying something about yourself. And it's very easy for us all to turn around and say, oh, well, none of that matters. And it should be about what's in their head, not how they display it. But that's also not the human condition, is it? The person who dresses well, who wears I mean, why don't we all turn up to work in, you know, sweatpants or in our pajamas? We don't, because it doesn't convey a professional experience.
Yep.
And I think there's that thing that people forget about that. When they're on video, you want to look good because you want to convey, you want someone to have some respect for you before you even open your mouth. Because if they don't respect you before you open your mouth, anything you say will be ignored anyway.
Yeah, I think from the report, I recall that over 60% of the people are not happy with how they look on video, but I think they don't think that the issue is their webcam. They think that, oh, it's kind of the environment in which I am, instead of thinking maybe I can get better lighting, maybe I can get a better webcam, and I can have a more professional appearance and convey and make a better impact on others, right? Which is really, really important, as you're pointing out. Now, I want to talk about also the productivity angle. So you found that some people, workers are, so we're talking about communication, collaboration, but there's also productivity. So for example, a lot of workers don't have the technology / furniture to have an ergonomic environment and to have a well-productive environment. And you know, when you're thinking about people who are coming into the office, right? Almost no one is coming into the office, let's be honest, 5 days a week. And it's going to be 2-3 days a week if they're coming into the office. So you're still having about half of your work done in the home office. You're communicating, collaborating somewhat, but you're definitely doing your deep work, your individual work in the home office. So productivity is incredibly important. And not having good ergonomics, the technology, furniture, and so on, is a serious issue. And that's why with the clients that I work with, we make ergonomics a high priority to make people well comfortable, because productivity is incredibly important. So tell me a little bit more about why that's not such a priority from the perspective of IT departments that you've surveyed.
Well, that's an interesting question. So I don't think that most IT departments think about it. Things like good ergonomics, good desk chair relationships, good lighting and environment, those sorts of things, those have, in an office environment, typically been run by facilities and HR. IT will then provide the computer that will go on the desk, but they don't set up the lighting, the plants, the air quality, the chairs that you sit in. IT does not have a point of view on things like, you know, do you have a nice Herman Miller chair or not? That's not their problem. And so they don't even think about it. Do you have a keyboard? Yes. Right. Well, I have the keyboard on my laptop, but of course, by its nature, it's a tiny keyboard because it has to be to fit on my laptop. And if you're using it for a couple of hours a week on an aeroplane or you know, in a coffee shop, it's fine. When you're using your entire day bent over looking at a 13-inch display with a cramped little keyboard, and you're using the trackpad on your computer, that actually has, not only does it make people less productive, but actually it's going to have some very important long-term healthcare issues for lots of people. The number of RSI, back problems, eye strain issues that users are beginning to exhibit is going to become a real problem. And not only is that bad for the productivity of those users, but it's also extremely bad for the company when lots and lots of people start coming off sick with things like backache and eye strain and RSI and all those things.
No, it's a serious issue, and I saw from the report that it's not simply the furniture and potted plants. Less than about two-fifths of the companies provided an external docking port, and only about half provide external monitors. Maybe something like two-thirds, like three-fifths provide a mouse. I mean, these are super duper basic things that are in the technology that are in the IT department sphere that aren't being provided. I mean, for the clients that I work with, we provided things like monitor arms and supports for webcams that you can have like a webcam stand and so on. These are all ergonomic issues that are quite important. And so I would say that the IT department does have an important role to play that there currently seems like a number of IT departments aren't playing. But you're also pointing out that the facilities, it seems like the IT and facilities aren't playing well together when they should be. So there should be some kind of combination and collaboration between IT and facilities that is currently not happening.
Yeah, I would strongly agree with that. I would also
Mhm.
point out that HR also has an angle in here as
Mhm.
well, right? One of the things that all of those departments, but particularly IT and facilities, have always really thought that their jobs end to a greater or lesser extent at the front door of their own organization, right? As soon as
Mhm.
you're outside of the front door of your organization, the IT department says, "Oh, we're giving you a laptop so you can go and work out of Starbucks, or if you have to be working from home for a day, you can do that." But what they've never been set up to do is set up people's home offices. Now, maybe senior execs will have someone
Yeah.
from IT come and help them out, but the reality is that the vast majority of us are told, "Get on with it." And that's not just because facilities don't know how to do this, and not only because it's people's personal spaces, therefore facilities and IT may not feel that they even have the right to come and do this, but there's also the sense of resources. Yeah. One thing that I have not experienced in all of the time, since the pandemic started, no one, not a single customer, and I speak to hundreds every year, no one has said, "Oh, well, we now realize I've got all these workers from home, so we're going to have to support them all. So we've increased the size of our IT department by a factor of 5." No one has said that, not a single person. And we don't expect them to either. Right? So I think there's an angle here where users don't know that it can be done. Facilities don't really understand that their role has moved beyond the front door of their organizations. And IT don't have more money and more resources, but do have distributed people and don't even know that those people actually need help, but don't know that they need help. It's a kind of a strange circle of lack of knowledge, I suppose.
Mhm. It sounds like a lot of misaligned incentives. And that's kind of on the shoulders and on the C-suite. This is what I was talking about. The C-suite is the one that in the end is the one that needs to pull these things together when there's a misalignment of incentives between the IT department, which we bash them some, but they do deserve some bashing, but they certainly not they're not responsible for the full scope of the problem. Some facilities, some HR, and in order to get workers to be productive, to collaborate effectively, to communicate effectively, both to external stakeholders, doing sales, doing customer support, and to internal stakeholders, communicating, collaborating with other employees, there needs to be a lot of intervention from the top in order to support staff who, again, to coming into the office 2 or 3 days a week, that means that you're still doing about half of your work outside the office. So what do you think is going to be the future in this area? What are you finding from the report, from your own experience talking to your customers?
Well, so there's a couple of angles here. I think the first one is now that we've realized, the report's brand new. I think this is to an extent a bit of a revelation to us as well. So I think
Mm.
what we've realized is that a lot of clients just do not even understand this as a problem, and they
Mm.
don't know what to do about it. Even if you were to look at a high-end solution from us, let's just, we're not the only player in the market. Other players exist, but
Of
Logitech's
course.
painting a major player. So
Mhm.
a device like the Logi Dock that I'm using now, so a Logi Dock and a ergonomic keyboard and mouse from us and a high-quality webcam and a solution like that, all up is going to cost you about $1,000. If I
Very
turn around
reasonable.
to well, yes, particularly when you turn around to an HR department and say, how much does it cost you when your users are off, your workers are off sick with RSI issues or with eye strain or with migraines, or they leave your company because they just get burnt out? I mean, burnout's a major problem for so many companies today. If
I
I
mean,
turn around to them and
from a sales department perspective, so how much do you lose when you lose a customer because they're not well supported, or you lose a prospect because you're not able to make the right impression, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So if you turn around to HR and facilities and say it's $1,000 a user, and we're not going to mitigate every problem. I can't make people not sit on the end of their bed to do all their work, for example. Right? There are other elements to this, but a significant part of it can be mitigated with technology. If you turn around to those people and say it's $1,000 a user, they would bite your arm off for it, because replacing people, even ignoring the human factors, but just simply having people who can no longer work for you or are burnt out for you and leave and go and join another company, replacing them costs so much more money than actually making these people more productive.
It's
That
about a
it's
year's
crazy.
salary. It's about a year's
Yes.
salary. Yep.
Oh, I was even thinking just a quarter of a year's salary.
No, that's the typical hiring to have a search, to hire someone, to train them up to the same level as someone who left is about a year's salary. That's kind of
Right.
the benchmark from an HR perspective.
Wow. I mean, I'm older than I like to pretend. I'm older than I look. But 25 years ago, Herman Miller came out with their chairs. I'm sitting in one now, the Aeron chair, and they were about $1,000 each. And millions of companies bought those products because they made the backache problems for most of their users go away. And you could still buy one of those Aeron chairs for $1,000, and you could buy a thing that looks similar but wasn't for like $80. And almost every corporate went and bought the good one because they understood what it meant. And I think that our big challenge is to help the clients understand that actually, for a relatively small investment, they can have a transformational effect on their users. I think that's pretty interesting story.
It is. I think one of the reasons that the clients I work with, we got a standardized package for our users is because we made sure they're all compatible and supportable by IT. So I think that's really important. Compatibility is obviously, if you have a Logitech and everything from Logitech, it will be all supported. I mean, I'm not saying if you get from Logitech, you can go to another player in the company and get everything from them, right? Another player in the industry. But the idea is that you want it to be compatible and you want it to be also well supported by IT. So whatever your IT specializes in, that's what you want for your customers. I mean, that's definitely something that is very helpful.
I would add to that and say one of the things that most of us now do is live in a series of different streaming technologies, right? So, we have a platform, whether it's Microsoft Teams or it's Zoom or it's Google or whatever. So I would recommend that users look, and IT departments look, for products that are certified with those brands.
Yeah.
Does it mean the quality of the experience is better? Actually, sometimes yes, but primarily, often you can't really tell the difference. But what you can do is when you ring up for support and you ring up Microsoft or you ring up Zoom or you ring up Google and they say, what are you using? And you tell them, and that device is certified, that's going to make your support problems 10 times easier than if you're running the Okie Kokie Mark 7 GTI.
Yeah, no, very true. You want it to be compatible. You want it to be easily one-click, especially if you're in a hybrid meeting. That's a lot of work to set up.
Yes.
Now, is there anything else we haven't talked about? Anything else you wish to share about this report before we wrap up?
I think that the biggest amazing thing to me about this report was that it's not about that the technology doesn't exist, and it's not even about IT departments not being prepared to invest. It's about IT departments looking at the world and saying, we have done our job, no one is complaining. And it is about users not knowing what is available. And I think that the third leg to the stool here is IT, facilities, and the users understanding that they're all in it together, and they need to work out and do some research to work out what actually matters. You know, if you turn around to most facilities managers 5 years, 3 years ago, and you said, where does your responsibility end? I think the vast majority would have said the front door of the building. And it isn't that anymore. And I think that their involvement will make a real transformation to this.
That makes a lot of sense. Where should listeners go to learn more about you, about Logitech products? Where would you direct them?
Sure. Well, obviously we can give you a link, but the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Just look for Simon Dudley at Logitech, and logitech.com is probably the best place to start your journey to look at our business-to-business products. We recently reorganized so that all of our business products are under one roof now internally. And so our narrative is very much about the entire experience. And then the last bit, I suppose I will say, is one thing that people don't realize that Logitech is very big in is not just the personal experiences, but also for when you are dialing into those meeting rooms. We're actually the largest provider of video solutions in meeting room environments, as well as a personal. So if they're looking at both ends of the same equation, we can help them with all of it.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Simon. That was very helpful.
Thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
All right, everyone, and I hope you have enjoyed the conversation too. This has been another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. Please make sure to subscribe to the Wise Decision Maker Show on whichever venue you chose to listen to us and to watch us, and make sure to leave a review to help other people discover the show and to help us improve the show. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest, most profitable decisions to you, my friends.